man, I don't even know what the hype is with this game. This grinding shit is so boring. Like, these mobs, they don't even do anything. They just die. I want something with a real challenge. I think I might try some PvP. Like, what's the worst that could happen, right? Okay, that sucked. I'm sure we've all been there at some point. You decide it'll be fun to get into PvP, and then you just end up getting stomped by some GigaChat gamer who's been playing for ages. And while this video will not turn you into some god amongst men, it might help you get a grasp of at least the basics of PvP, which can be applied to Node Wars, or Arena of Solaire, or 1v1s, or anything you want really. It's just to help you get started on your road to becoming the PvP master. So to get started, I'll be talking about 3 concepts in this video. The first one being movement, namely protected movement. The second being crowd control, also known as CC. And the third one being combos. If you manage to get the hang of all 3 of these concepts, you'll be able to fight anyone, anywhere, without too much trouble. Before we get into the movement part, let's actually get into the protected part first. There are 3 ways to actively protect yourself in Black Desert Online. The first one being the least protected, which is a frontal guard. As indicated by the name, it protects you from the front. So that means, as you can see in the clip, it does not protect you from the side. Another downside to a frontal guard is that it can break. As you can see on the screen, there is a block gauge, and if that goes to 0, it'll break and you can't block. A good thing to know and keep in mind is that the block scales off your max HP. Next up is the super armor. The super armor gives you immunity to crowd control, so you can't be stunned or knocked on the ground or anything like that. However, you do still take damage, and there's one crowd control that does work on super armors, which is a grab. Now the third and final protection you have is the iframe, also known as the invincibility frame, which renders you completely immune to damage and crowd control. Nothing will actually hit you except for desync maybe. Now you might be wondering, what does all this have to do with movement? Well, everything really, because if you're fighting someone, you're not just going to walk around, because they'll see you and then they're like, ha, get shit on kid, and nobody wants that, right? So what you want to do is learn how to chain those protections together in movement, right? So you're never completely open, you're never letting yourself get caught. Now in my opinion, there's 2 ways to practice this. The first one is to just practice in fights, right? If you fight someone, you'll get CC'd if you do it wrong, so it's like an action-reaction kind of. The other option is to go into a battle arena or any area really and just set yourself a goal. Like, I want to reach this point and just try to get there while staying protected. If you're going with the second option, the trick is to not just spam the same skills, right? You want to try and get creative and use your entire kit. Next up, we'll be talking about crowd controls. Now this is where it might get a little bit confusing for some people. There is a lot of different types of crowd control in this game, but we can generally divide them into 2 categories. The first of these 2 categories is the soft crowd controls, which are the stiffness and the knockback. These are generally short duration and they only count for 0.7 on the CC counter for PvP, which I will explain a bit about later. The second category is the hard CCs, which are crowd controls with a longer duration and they count as 1 on the CC counter. These include the following crowd controls, which are stun, bound, knock down, floating, grapple, and freezing. Now, you might be wondering about the numbers I mentioned, the 0.7 and the 1. These are actually the numbers that count towards the CC limit. So normally the CC cap is 2, which means you could do, for example, a bound and a stun, or a stun and a knockdown, doesn't really matter, but the limit is 2. And if you noticed, the soft CCs I mentioned earlier only count for 0.7, which means that if you hit a 0.7 and a 1, there's still 0.3 left before you actually hit the 2, which means you can get 3 CCs in, which is why you generally will try to open your combos with either a knockback or a stiffen, because it lets you do longer combos and eventually you'll be able to do a reset combo. Which brings us to, you've guessed it, combos. Just like protection and crowd control, combos also consist of, let's say, two components. One of those is the filler damage, and the other part is the crowd control and the main damage. Now in this video, I'm not going to teach you how to do a specific combo. I am going to teach you how you can actually create your own combos from scratch, just by following principles of the crowd control system. Now, if you've been looking at the screen, you'll notice that the combos I've been doing are not good, and there's a few reasons for this. First of all, I am CCing the dummies back to back. I'm not giving them any time to recover from the first CC, I'm just straight up following up. Second, I am not putting any filler skills in between, I am just pumping crowd control into them. And this way you're not going to kill anyone, ever. So then, what is a good combo, you might wonder? Well, I'll show you right now. So first off, you see I start with a stiffen, I follow it up with a bound, and then I spam filler damage in between, right? And then I end on a knockdown. And it's very important to end on a knockdown if possible, because this is the crowd control that lasts the longest. It doesn't really matter what you use as the second CC after the stiffen or the knockback, but make sure you finish on a knockdown. Now what's important about filler skills is that they don't have a CC of their own. If you use a skill that has a CC, you're going to override your previous one, right? And you don't want that, because you want them to be on the floor for the longest amount of time so you can do the most amount of damage possible. So, to prevent me from keeping on rambling, I'll sum it up for you guys. The most important thing in a combo is taking advantage of the time that someone is CC'd for. So, if you do a stiffen, there's not a lot of time to re-CC them. But after that, like after you re-CC them from a stiffen, you've got a lot of time to do filler damage. After which, you re-CC them again, and you have even more time to spam big damage. That's basically the gist of it. Now to finish off the video, I'll give a quick summary of everything we've discussed, and at the end I'll put in some helpful tips that helped me a lot when I started getting into PvP. Things like, I wish I knew this before I start, and hopefully you'll learn from them and don't make the same mistakes I did. So, we talked about movement, how to stay protected using front guard, super armor, and iframes, right? We've talked about crowd control. How can you make someone stop moving? And set them up for a combo, which is the third part, combos. If you are able to apply all these three concepts on one class, right, in one situation, you're already better than 90% of the people who start PvP, right? You're going to have a solid basis to start learning your class even better. Have you ever been in a situation where you thought you were about to kill someone and then you accidentally hit your Blackbeard Rage skill? Well, I've got the tip for you to stop that from happening ever again. All you have to do is press Alt and B together and it will lock your rage until you unlock it again. Tip number 2, mouse movement. Some classes benefit from this more than others, but some skills can be moved by clicking your mouse. To enable mouse movement, go into your settings, go into interface settings, and use the mouse interface. Now, the third and final tip I'll give you is to just practice. Like, watching videos is great, getting some info is great, but nothing beats actually playing and testing things yourself. At first you're gonna suck, and that's fine. Everyone sucks when they start. eventually you'll get there, and I hope you just focus on having fun instead of winning, and then you'll get there for sure. Oh, and actually take some time to read your skills, because there's like a lot of info there. Like there's some cool interactions that are only shown in the info screen thingy. Okay, thanks for watching. Have a good day.